Hey, it's Soul, and welcome back to another episode of Warcraft Weekly, the show that does not take your concerns very seriously at all. It's another big week over at Blizzard with the release of the first season of Mastery in WoW Classic, 9.2 updates including solo queue, legendaries, and tier set bonuses, and the first build is available for preview via data mining, a new Hearthstone expansion, and the celebration of 17 years of WoW with stuff to farm for, promo items, and sales, and maybe more next week with the upcoming holiday break. Too bad all that was thrown into a dumpster fire, fueled by the news of Activision Blizzard CEO and man who practices the I am the Senate speech multiple times, Bobby Kotick. I vented over this earlier in the week, highlighting a report from the Wall Street Journal alleging Kotick of covering up wrongdoings inside the company, lying to his board and to investors, and even his own allegations, including threatening to have someone killed. To say he should go is an understatement, and coming from just one tiny little voice, it only means so much. Fortunately, I'm not alone, and there have been developments since we've last talked. Maybe by the time you reach the end of this video, you might agree with me that, in spite of the undeniable bad news and roller coaster of emotion and your relevant concerns over the World of Warcraft, this week was pretty good. And not just good, but that the events of this week are a sort of inflection point, or at the very least we can get super high off of the hopium. I will share my visions/delusions later in the show. You can use the navigation thing below to jump where you feel like going, but for now, let's cover what is up this week. The season of Mastery has begun over on WoW Classic to what I would like to think of as a warm reception. Unlike the original WoW Classic, which isn't really original, is it? This time around, the season of Mastery is not a race, but a player's careful trek through Azeroth to preserve their soul of iron. A prestige buff that lets the rabble know that you've never known defeat. Now, I'm a big wuss. I don't have the stomach to handle the stress of not dying at all. Maybe if there's a Wrath season of Mastery, it'll feel nice and safe on a paladin. The novelty will eventually wear off for most as they reach max level, and a freak accident could cause a raid wipe. I bet you down the line, players will be paying paladins big money to use divine intervention in situations like those. We've got new information about the upcoming solo shuffle, a solo queue brawl coming in 9.2. In a nutshell, you queue up alone. When your queue pops, a total of 2 healers and 4 DPS are brought together to fight a series of 6 matches where the 2 healers are always on the opposing team. When it's go time, the first team to score 1 kill on the opposing team will win that round, and then the DPS are shuffled around. Friend becomes foe, foe becomes friend. At the end of all 6 rounds, rating is given based on how many wins you had. So far, this sounds really well thought out, and it covers a lot of the concerns that I shared the other week. The matches are designed to be very short. There's only 6 of them, and by the way, if someone happens to leave, they're just counted as losing every match going forward. Everyone ends up being on an uneven team at some point, so it sort of balances itself out. The beauty and horror of this is how simple the solo queue strategy is. You're going to want to focus on bursting down the most vulnerable target and pray that your target is killed before you or one of your comrades gets smoked. If you have a sucky player on your team, guess what? At some point, the sucky player is going to be on the opposite team in the series, and you'll have to quickly adapt to either protect or take down that player. So success will mean being able to change up very quickly to all the classes you'll be fighting with and against. Sadly, it's clear that rated battlegrounds are not going to be touched in this experiment. The results of this brawl will determine whether it becomes a primary game mode in the near future like in 10.0. The brawl, like everything else, is yet to be tested, but what I like about this already is that since it's solo queue, it's basically unusable for boosters. There's no reliable way to ensure that a booster can be paired with a client. There's no guarantee even if they were paired that they could successfully win matches for their client and throw matches when on the opposite team. Maybe a large coordinated team that all queued up at once could increase that likelihood where you'd see like 5 boosters from the same team and 1 client, but that's just me speculating at this point. Long term, I can see this being a really popular path for rated PvP that people have been asking for a while. It's just now that the WoW team finally came up with a reasonable solution. I wonder if this could even work at a small scale but competitive level, like with thousands of participants who play through a set number of solo queue matches, and then there's like cutoffs based on how much rating you earned, and then do that a number of times until you get to the final 6 and maybe determine a winner from that? I don't know, but I wouldn't mind hearing your thoughts on this too. Next up, with the holiday season just starting to ramp up, as usual, WoW related stuff is on sale. Shadowlands itself is up to half off of its regular price. Now, I didn't test this out, but the level boost that comes from the heroic and epic editions of Shadowlands probably not going to have the level 60 boost that was recently updated after the 9.2 announcement last week. It's probably still the level 50 boost. Other highlights include a sale on Diablo 2 Resurrected and the Burning Crusade Classic bundles. On top of that, and you know, perfect timing of course, there's 2 new shop items. First off is a 6-month sub promotion, so for you long-term subscribers using WoW tokens to maintain a permanent 6-month sub, this comes free. And here they are, they're baby Murloc backpacks. How disgusting and cute and disgusting and cute. It comes with 3 color variations, and to buy them directly, it'll set you back $15 or whatever gold it takes to make that. The second item is this transmog set, the Celestial Observers Ensemble. This comes as part of a promo bundle that includes a discount on the infamous Celestial Steed and Argy, this little 4-legged goat creature. The bundle is prorated, meaning the price will adjust based on what you already have. So, to be clear, the set itself is not part of the sale, and it's gonna set you back $20 or the gold equivalent if you want it a la carte. Taking a closer look, it's a pretty cool set if you like the glowies, but keep in mind they're linked to specific parts of the outfit, and I'll break it down. The orbiting stars that you see show up when you transmog into the cape. So if you don't have the cape on, they go away. If you only have the cape on, then they come back. When you use the helmet, a little constellation thing appears above the head. Each shoulder piece also has its own design. There are more constellations next to the wrists and below your feet when you wear the robe. And the feet are lies. They're total lies. This is not a glow up, it's just colored this way to enhance a lighting effect that isn't really there. How dare they? I mean, otherwise it looks pretty good, okay? I mean, you got shoulders that don't make it look like you have to walk through a door sideways. It's pretty good. It's a robe, but nobody's perfect. Now, some people are mad about this set, and for a variety of reasons, including but not limited to the regular discourse over having to pay extra money for anything on top of their subscription. But also, in light of the recent 9.2 announcement, many have compared this one set to the 12 class sets and are using that to write the whole narrative of how the shop transmog looks better than the upcoming tier sets. In this case though, really? Like, are you sure? The jury's still out because we're starting to see more of the tier sets from different angles, different color tones, and most importantly, in my opinion, on different character models. I'm not even saying that all of these sets are good or bad. I mean, this is art, so we're all gonna have our own opinions, but the way I see it, I see what I guess I should call similar efforts. There are individual pieces that I like and don't like, but the biggest difference are the starry glow things, and if that's the value prop for you, alright, I'm not gonna fight you there, but really, someone ought to go to jail over the feet. Come on. Many have also pointed out the tone deafness, the audacity to sell store items during a time when the Blizzard studio is under such heavy scrutiny. How dare you try to take my money when it's hard enough to even stand playing your games, Bobby Kotick? But we've been here time and time again, every time any new items or sales or promos come to the in-game shop. It doesn't matter if there's good news, Blizzard's trying to distract us. Bad news, Blizzard is milking goodwill. Or no news, Blizzard's obviously trying to prolong subs. It's as if there's no good time for these things to happen, because you don't like paying for anything, and I get it. These are the times where I really envy the people who don't watch this channel, or any channel for that matter. They just digest their WoW news from the launcher and the website and haven't heard about much of anything since July. Man, they've got it good. Here's my take though. Even without the news of Bobby Kotick pissing all over the excitement of this week, even if you don't like the things talked about this week, you can't deny that there was just a lot of it, and this was pre-planned. Anyone who thinks all of this was suddenly pulled out of nowhere just to distract us from the Wall Street Journal report, yeah, give me what you're smoking. Oh yeah, years ago, even before the Activision Blizzard merge, Bobby Kotick planned WoW's anniversary somehow, and the pandemic, and all of ABK's releases to distract us from this very report. Brilliant. Remember what time it is right now? It's November, when we typically get lots and lots of Blizzard news about new content, maybe a new expansion, and more coming from the studio. And I haven't been to Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles for like 2 years, and now I'm just more upset. Bobby Kotick! So let's cheer myself up. I mean, let's move on to the 9.2 PTR, which surprisingly made itself available for data mining this week, although actual testing might not be happening until at least the week of the 29th, according to a blue post. First off, we have the Incubus model as announced a few months back. This model, and I presume we'll probably see multiple colors of this, will be peppered across the game, hanging out alongside their succubi counterparts out in the world and in dungeons and in raids. We're also expected to see a warlock glyph so players can change their demonic summon as well. Thanks to Mr. GM aka Dan, I can shamelessly steal his content and give you folks a preview of the broker themed gear sets also coming in the patch. I'm half kidding, I'm just going to show you some still shots from the video that he created showing off the different armor sets. And I think they look pretty good. Plate always looks good, thank goodness. And if you want a closer look at these in motion, you can check out his video, which I will link in the description below. I am looking forward to seeing the remaining color palettes of the tier and broker sets. Like, that's gonna make a big difference when I definitely start mixing and matching different pieces. Speaking of sets, we got tier set bonuses to talk about. In an earlier video, I went over the official blog post that first talks about them, and I'll summarize. There's going to be a 2 and a 4 set bonus and 5 pieces total. The pieces should sound familiar: head, shoulders, chest, gloves, and legs. We still don't know which bosses drop what, so the pace at which we get these bonuses is still going to be up in the air. I should probably talk about legendaries here too, because there have been obvious concerns about recrafting legendaries and all that. A new legendary will be introduced in the patch, and while I can be totally wrong about this, it seems that by default it's just given to us in the form of a belt, which thankfully does not overlap with tier gear. This legendary is equivalent to the Covenant specific legendary that we can make in 9.1, only this one will change if we happen to swap covenants. Also, we get a memory of this legendary, so if we do want to craft this in a different slot aside from the belt, we can do so. I think this is decent, but not entirely perfect. Like, I'd prefer that if we can just choose any slot that we want the first time around, and then if we change our minds later, we can craft something else, but yeah, that's just me. The biggest problem I'm seeing is solve though. Like, we won't have to craft a legendary for each covenant that we want to swap to, meaning much less chaos when wrangling between tier and legendaries and covenants. We haven't seen bonafide tier set bonuses since Antorus in Legion, so my immediate takeaway from all of this is, hey, I kind of miss this. Because for you more experienced folks, like, think back to patch 8.3 where we stacked essences and Azerite bonuses and corruption, and that was, that was pretty heavy. Legion 7.3 wasn't as bad. Like, we did have set bonuses, and we also had to deal with relic slots and the Netherlight Crucible and multiple legendaries. What we're getting in 9.2 is even slimmer. I mean, yeah, there are conduits and soul binds, but we're pretty used to those. And I'm just mostly talking about the managing of gear, and this time around, it feels pretty straightforward. Get the tier from the raid, put on the legendaries that you want to use, your covenant legendary is basically slot locked, and that's about it. The raid is not the only source of tier, so let's talk about the creation catalyst, a zone feature in 9.2. This will let you sort of transmute non-tier gear that you earn from this season into tier gear, and here are the basic steps. First, you want to unlock the Creation Catalyst. I predict that this won't be accessible until at least the start of Season 3, maybe another week or two in, and the race to World First will probably be over by then. This might horrify some of you, but there's probably story and quest content to complete in order to access this feature. Once it is unlocked, the next thing you're going to need are 2 ingredients. You need this thing called Cosmic Flux, a currency that's similar to Echoes of Ny'alotha in patch 8.3, and by similar I mean it's going to be a thing that drops everywhere, like from raid bosses, PvP stuff, Mythic Plus, Torghast, World Quest, and maybe Covenant callings and treasures and rares in the new zone. I don't know. There's no telling if this is a season currency or if there's a weekly cap or caps of any sort. We're just gonna have to wait and see. Finally, you need a piece of gear to convert. According to the blog post, this can come from PvP, Mythic Plus, the Great Vault, or, quote, other new eternities and content. The small concern I have there is for people who do not raid or do Mythic Plus or PvP and otherwise can't get stuff from the Great Vault. Does eternities and content mean only gear that's obtained from Zereth Mortis, the new zone? What about a world quest over in the original Shadowlands zones during Season 3, or from the mission table, or from crafted gear? Now, what is cool and reasonable is that in the example, an item level 265 non-set piece can be converted into a 265 set piece of the same slot, so a chest becomes a chest. What we don't know is if the resource cost of a 265 is going to be different from a lower piece of gear like a 252, or even a higher piece like a 278. I am a bit wary about a scaling cost because that kind of forces the mindset that a top raider, a PvP, or a Mythic Plus person straight up needs to do more grinding than other people on top of their main activity. So it's all up in the air. I don't want to react too positively or negatively to speculation, but I am excited to learn more. I'm going to wrap up the preview by showcasing the weapons over on Wowhead while I talk about more stuff. There's a lot more to eventually show you, like new models, mounts, and even a druid form that aren't going to be a part of the in-game shop. Crazy, I know. So the PTR will start being testable roughly this month, which lets us do a little bit of speculating, so here we go. If we look back, the 9.1 PTR builds started rolling out on April 12th, with a patch launching the week of June 29th. That's a 2.5 month test cycle. The 9.15 PTR started the week of August 30th, and that patch patch launched the week of November 2nd. That was a 9-week test cycle, barely 2 months. Now, the wait between patches has been longer in Shadowlands than pretty much any other expansion, let's not forget that, but it certainly appears that the WoW team has been taking strides in catching up. If we assume a 2 to 3 month test cycle, 9.2 could go live sometime in February, which seems a little bit odd, right? Seeing as how only recently the Sylvanas book release was delayed to a March 22nd release. So let's consider a 9.2 patch schedule. Regardless of when it actually starts, 1 week after that patch drops, Season 3 begins. But it won't be until the week after when the full raid is accessible and we reach the conclusion of the Shadowlands storyline, at least maybe. In recent statements, game director Ian Hazzikostas has made it clear that the main story beats of WoW will take place in-game, giving me the impression that the Sylvanas book is a supplementary, fill-in-the-gap sort of book that will still make me wonder, why didn't I know all this information sooner? But I digress. If we start from the Sylvanas book release and work our way backwards, maybe 2 weeks after the raid cinematic is a good wait time between the finale and the book. 1 week before that is the start of Season 3, and 1 week before that, the patch would have dropped. This gives us a possible launch date of the week of February 22nd, 2022, so February seems to maybe fit. Mid-February, late February, it works either way. Personally, I'm more concerned about when I can play the game as opposed to when I can read the book, but I feel pretty comfortable with this prediction, and of course you can share your own predictions in a comment too. You know folks, in a copium-filled, shill-tastic World of Warcraft, we'd be ending the show on a really strong note. Even if you're not dazzled by what's coming, it's still just the excitement of something new that makes previews feel like kind of a meta-adventure on its own. Unfortunately though, we have to deal with the reality, and the fact that the big bad Blizzard boss, Bobby Kotick, is a specter that for many has totally compromised that excitement. Now I and many other content creators have shared our feelings about this. Like for me, I'm not going to stop playing WoW because I'm not going to let a handful of bad guys ruin my fun. In an indirect way, that takes choice away from me. It gives abusers power that they didn't know that they had. I'm not going to stop covering WoW or the studio that runs it because I think it's important to spread awareness of the game and the people behind it, so you can make your own decisions. You don't have to even respect my decisions, just that I'm making it honestly and for myself. Right now though, I want to share what I admit is headcanon. It's a delusion, it's copium, or whatever else you want to call it. And I'm not an investor, I'm not a business analyst. For now though, I am a storyteller. I said earlier in the show that it feels as if we're in the middle of an inflection point, the precipice of great change that's coming. And I think that Bobby Kotick might be on his way out. And he knows it, and a lot of other people know it, although this is behind closed doors, behind even more closed doors. Here's what we're seeing from the outside. More and more media outlets are looking at the Blizzard and Activision lawsuits. The Wall Street Journal put the spotlight on Bobby Kotick himself. The stock price has plunged close to pre-pandemic levels, and yet the ABK board of directors is sticking by him, or at least that's what we think is happening. Now again, I'm no expert, but I like to think that investors like stability. The news of this year has made ATVI stock less than stable. It'd be worse if, just after a quarterly earnings report, just after Kotick took a pay cut, that ABK's own board of directors showed a lack of unity. Remember, these people are like 99% money driven. Ousting the CEO with timing like this is more likely to drive the stock price down even further. What's the point of being morally right if it costs you a yacht? I'm sure that they would say. But what else is happening around us? Since summer, numerous sponsors have pulled away from the Overwatch League and the competitive Call of Duty circles. The Girls Who Code organization is distancing itself from ABK due to the lawsuits. These aren't good. But here's what's really raising eyebrows. An email from PlayStation boss Jim Ryan expresses his disappointment, saying that Activision, quote, has not done enough to address a deep-seated culture of discrimination and harassment, that his team outreached to Activision immediately after the article was published to express our deep concern, and to ask them how they plan to address the claims made in the article. We do not believe their statements of response properly address the situation. And more recently, Xbox boss Phil Spencer stepped up the rhetoric, writing in an email that he told his team that he's, quote, evaluating all aspects of our relationship with Activision Blizzard and making ongoing proactive adjustments. It appears as if more and more of the industry is turning against Activision Blizzard, but the focal point is with Bobby Kotick himself. After so many wrongdoings have been exposed throughout the company, and I bet that there's more exposing to be done, we're at least seeing progress being made below the highest executive level. For the bosses of Sony and and Microsoft to publicly criticize a single publisher, that's a bigger deal than many are making it out to be, at least in this headcanon. A lot of fans and critics have called for a boycott of Activision Blizzard games, and rightfully so. I strongly believe that we should all act in a way that is honest to ourselves. Now, it's one thing for a number of individuals or a large number of individuals to call for a boycott, but again, in my opinion, that doesn't guarantee change. And even if there was change, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that those players would come back. People who run companies tend to have a profit over people mindset. It's not right, but it's the likelihood. So in most cases, it's easier to just lay off staff, trim some of the fat to make up for whatever lost profits happen. But what we're seeing this week is this political, corporate level saber rattling. We're seeing platform owners, Sony and Microsoft, expressing doubt in Activision as a publisher. Now, if we were to see these sorts of platforms drop Activision games from their digital stores or even just make them stop publishing on those platforms, the response would be immense. Tons of people would lose money, gamers would be pissed, and they'd lose confidence in everybody, the publisher and the platform. So I don't really see that happening. But I do see these threats weakening Activision Blizzard, not just on the stock market, but also at the negotiating table. Like when evaluating existing contracts or writing up agreements for new games, ABK might end up getting a smaller cut from digital sales and may have fewer of those big client favors because, well, these other giants are thinking of their own wallets. For example, would Sony want to risk losing investor faith because they continue doing business with the likes of Kotick? That might not be a factor today, but it could be tomorrow. This almost guarantees long-term a future profit loss because that one guy is still in the big chair. We're very quickly seeing Kotick become poisonous, not just for consumers, but among his peers. Slowly but surely, the general public is seeing the ugliness of the gaming industry and it's learning his name. And maybe the board knows that and is taking steps to protect the company before it becomes a pariah. It's common for a publication like the Wall Street Journal to reach out for comment before publishing a story of this nature. It's probably why Kotick was able to publish a video response and get his board to make their defending statements within hours of it going public. But I want to flip that around a little bit and describe a sort of different possibility. Upon sharing the Wall Street Journal story among themselves, Kotick and his board might have discussed this and decided that, okay, there's no real future for Kotick as CEO, but this needs to be handled as smoothly as possible to mitigate the damage. So they start off with some strong statements to demonstrate some unity, but then they endure the backlash and the threats and the losses and the slide on their stock. They wait just long enough, which might not be much longer for all we know, before Kotick announces that he himself is stepping down from his role as executive because maybe he's retiring or he wants to be with his family or whatever. And why go about it like this? Easy, because money. The board members who've worked alongside Kotick have gotten really rich under his leadership. In 2003, ATVI was a dollar stock, and it peaked over $100 early this year. It's tanked for now, but overall the company is still doing great compared to back then, and that inspires loyalty. But what if there's a significant risk to all those gains, like not being able to publish games on an entire platform, like Xbox? Maybe they saw the writing on the wall, and all of them, including Kotick, agreed it's time to go. It's just happening in a way that affects shareholder confidence in the least harmful way possible. But maybe we're wrong and we're slowly seeing one of gaming's biggest publishers slide into a freefall thanks to one guy. Okay, well, a couple of guys, maybe a few girls, but at least at the moment, that guy. I'd like to think that I'm right, that Bobby Kotick is willingly a dead man walking because his greed is more powerful than his pride, and in the long run, that comes to our benefit as gamers. And while there's no way of knowing the next person is going to be better, we can take comfort knowing that they're different. Okay, so I did end it on a really scholastic note, and that's the show, baby. So busy week, huh? Yeah. Very busy week. I'm really talked out, but this was a ride. It was definitely a ride. Next week, most of Blizzard is off work, and as far as my plans go, so will I. Meaning for the first time in forever, the weekly will be on break next week. You can still expect reminder videos as usual, as I plan on covering a topic that I'd like your thoughts on. Shadowlands 1 year later. Should you start playing? I'm going to answer that question from the perspective of someone who knows almost nothing about the expansion and who obviously has not gone through the patch cycles and the time gates and the drama and the etceteras. My question to you Would you recommend it for someone asking? Why or why not? I want to thank everyone for hanging out with me over the past couple days, especially on our really long coffee episodes. I know that I've kind of fallen off on re-uploading streams because they honestly take stupendous amounts of time to repost, but especially with a busy week like this, everything was just kind of borked. So to the Twitch subscribers and the patrons and to you, thank you again for the support, and I will see you next week. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.